the biggest hang up that I see when I talk to our sales organization, you can almost always backtrack it back to unclear expectations.
There you go.
And so it's one thing, this is a tough balance, Mark, and it's one thing that I'm working on right now as a leader is I want to give my team and our sales managers want to give enough direction so that we feel like expectations are clear. But the generation that we're leading right now really wants flexibility, and they want to have some independence, and they want to be able to be creative decision makers. And it's, it's a struggle. It's a challenge finding that right balance. But as you think of, as you ask the question around managing this complexity, I think we as leaders have to figure out a way to be super simple and super clear with what needs executed, but then allow for that creativity in how they get their work done.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a lot to weed through, especially if you have somebody who's less experienced.
Yeah.
So they need the guidance, right? They need to know that they're on the right track and be recognized and rewarded along the way.
It's really easy to just put out the proclamation and just sit back and say, all right, I said it, it should happen. But kind of staying on top of the situation, staying in communication with the team, and making sure they understand what's going on. And then having people who are in the day-to-day sort of management oversight responsibilities, continuing to stay on top of that message is really, really the biggest thing for us. And when we've kind of spun our wheels for years before I even got here in kind of certain, leadership positions on the sales side. And I think that's what it came down to is, we had a lot of people who would talk and not a lot of people who would just get into the trenches and kind of lead by example and stay on top of everybody. And, I've been really thrilled. I think we finally got it right. I wish it happened a long time ago, but, no time like the present. So it feels really good. And frankly, it's been a learning that I need to make sure that I check in with those people kind of 2 steps down on a more regular basis. So they hear from me, they hear what's on my mind, and they can give me direct feedback. And I prize transparency. I let people be as transparent as they want with me. Sometimes they can go off on a tangent I don't exactly have time for. I just let them know that. But, it doesn't really matter if their opinion is wrong. It's their opinion, and it affects how they behave. Right? It doesn't matter if they don't understand the reality. Part of their opinion, their opinion is part of reality. Right? So if they don't understand something that they should understand, it's going to affect how they act and how they perform. So you still have to deal with it. You can't just brush it aside.
Yeah.
Spending some time to understand where your strengths are and then really trying to emphasize those. I mean, I do genuinely believe in, the Donald Clifton thinking that you can manage weakness and soar with strengths. And so, I mean, I know where weaknesses are for me, and I try to have team members that we can round those types of things out because, I mean, I recognize where some of mine are, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to improve upon those because I know I can accomplish more focusing on those things that I do better.
I currently in a position where I get a lot of requests for ideas to get presented to our executive leadership team. I was actually with our CEO all day yesterday and had a good opportunity to talk. And with Chris, the blessing that we have with him as our new CEO is that he said, I want to hear everything. I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. And everything's open for conversation and discussion. There's no bad idea. And that is a breath of fresh air when we have our senior leadership that are embracing the opportunity for people that are in the field to really address the concerns that they're seeing. And more importantly, what are some possible solutions? And that's the approach I take too, Mark. So as an individual, whether you're a seasoned veteran, they kind of use me as the, I'll be this is kind of silly how it sounds, but they think I might be expendable, and I'm okay with that because I can ask for forgiveness, and that's okay with that. I've been doing this for quite a few years. I know how to approach the conversation, and I'm not afraid to have a strong point supporting the decisions that we want to recommend. Because if you don't bring your thoughts forward, they will never get heard. And if you get shot down, so be it. That gives me the desire. I need to brush that proposal up again. Obviously, I didn't communicate effectively what my expectations or intentions were, or the outcome, or maybe it was the wrong time. Maybe when I approached it, there was some other things going on that were more important. Don't throw it away. Don't put it on the bookshelf. Keep it on the burner and find the opportunity to freshen it up again and represent itself.
To me, part of being intentional is being unapologetic for what it is that you're after, right? So we're talking about, okay, yeah, this is what I want. But that's okay. Sometimes people are apologizing for what they think they want. I want to change the game. I want to change the way we do business. I want to make this better. I want to make this inherently better long term. And we believe that internally. Maybe we have that internal conversation. But often I think we end up judging ourselves. We judge others based on our best intentions for ourselves, but we judge others on their actions in many cases.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We know what's going on in our own heads, and nobody else has that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about, how you build culture around that then. So, hey, we're shifting, we're changing. Does that become part of the culture? How do you do that intentionally to then have that end type of culture that you want to have?
Yeah, for sure. The first step, I think it's 3 steps. The first step is, defining what it needs to be. What do you want to foster and what that looks like. The second step is communication, right? You have to be really open and repetitive about it. And I think, recent learnings for me, you have to start calling out the good and the bad, and give people examples. And a lot of it is change management, right? I'm assuming in general that's going to be a change management question because you're building the culture, right? So people aren't used to it, and in a lot of cases, they're probably used to leaders who don't know how to do that, or maybe they just talk and they don't do, right? So
that's right there.
Often face jaded kind of reactions to whatever you talk about. It could be the best idea in the world, and they'll just say, I've heard this a dozen times before. I'm just going to keep my head down, wait until they forget, and just keep doing what I'm doing. So then the last, and I think, the most important side of it to me, and certainly in my time here, has been making sure you have a team to help execute on that culture and that change. So I found that it didn't matter how much I talked about things and how much I tried to lead by example and just do. If I was just mostly talking to an immediate team and they weren't turning around and talking to everybody else and doing the things I expected, nothing happened. And then I would kind of revisit after some amount of time and find, people didn't even know what I was talking about, or, I would say something that I've been talking about for 6 to 12 months, and they'd say, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea," or "That's really interesting. Like, why haven't you heard of that before? I've been talking about it this entire time." And that was a huge source of frustration for me, but it's an inevitability, right? Like the weak chain in the link is where things break down. So if you don't have a team that can kind of handle the day-to-day for you and kind of take your marching orders and go give those to the team, then it's just not going to happen.
Any business, once you get past a certain threshold, either that's 50 employees or whatever, I think it's worthwhile to have a tool to help you understand your staff to understand you. And so, like I said, we use the culture index. There's a couple of different things that we use that for. One is for staff to understand just what makes them click. And I think that understanding is important. And then we try to utilize that to make sure defining what success looks like in a job role And then we try to align personality and the person to that job role. So every applicant for us takes the culture index. It's not an end all be all, right? Like, we're not going to not hire the right person because their personality profile didn't match what we thought was successful. I would tell you, some of my best hires have been ones that weren't close matches for a job because we didn't conceptualize what success was correctly in the moment. But we do use that. Like I said, all of our hiring managers at this point have been trained on it. We use it with new hires. We use it with staff. We try to talk about it during reviews, just in understanding too, reminding sometimes, hey, part of the reason that this person or this personality or these dynamics are playing out is because this person's personality thrives on this one thrives on that. Like, here's how we can navigate the center ground. So we've really tried to work through that. And again, it's always a growing process. We don't have it entirely figured out, but it's been a useful tool for us.
Yeah, that's good. If you could just distill that into one or two benefits for your business, I do want to make a sales pitch out of it because I think it's fantastically intentional and more people should be doing stuff like this, whether it's this or something else.
Sure.
So what would be the top one or two benefits you guys are getting that are affecting your business?
I think better, I'm not going to say manager. You manage projects, you lead people, but better leader interactions with staff members. I think, like I said, when our staff leaders understand how to better interact with their staff and motivate and challenge, that piece for us has been essential. And I think, frankly, again, that just the hiring component, having one added thing, in addition to a resume, in addition to an interview, one added piece of data that can help you make the right hire.
Yeah, fantastic.
Retaining good talent, attracting and retaining good talent is always a leadership challenge. The one thing, and I'm a little bit biased, so you'll have to bear with me on this, but the one thing that I believe is most important for organizations to really keep their best people is to ensure that you're giving them a regular cadence of opportunities to learn and grow. And, I've worked within several different organizations. I've worked under several different structures. And when I say, are you investing in your people? Are you developing that talent? Because if you're not, they will leave. And what I'm not saying is, are you sending them to a conference once a year? It's not that. It's saying, are you when you roll out a new marketing program, for example, are you spending time practicing? Are you spending time ensuring that they understand exactly how to message that to the customer or to the retailer? Are you ensuring that they don't just understand the details of the programs, but they are really confident around how to execute it and do it well?
What happens for most of us is we feel like we're on an island screwing this all up so badly that nobody could possibly ever have done this as badly as me. That's the story that people adopt, right?
Right.
And the reality is, like, at the same time, somebody's doing it at least as bad as you, if not worse. Like, hey, let's at least get together and commiserate.
Correct. Well, I like that idea too, Mark. So when we think about pre-pandemic, we had more social interaction. We had more team meetings. The camaraderie and the relationships had been developed. Post-pandemic, after being sequestered in your home for 2 years, people became accustomed to not reaching out, not communicating. The Zoom calls were, they were able to achieve the communication of what steps we need to take. However, you didn't have that social interaction. So I would encourage individuals, as we're moving forward now and being more diverse in our office structure, to find individuals, find a space where you can connect, whether it's through a common chat group or whether it's in person. Of course, with companies people being spread across the country, meeting in person is not as convenient, but at least have a specific time set up once a month or whatever the time frame it might be, to share ideas, to your point, in a common thread.
It's almost certain that whatever position you're in, if you're listening to this podcast, you can't win all the time. You have to pick and choose your battles. And, when it comes to prioritization, right, you have to think about, here are the things I need to get done. Here are the things that are most important for me to do, right? They're not necessarily the same, because there's the urgency, there's the impact kind of factors on both of those. And you probably can't even do all of those, right? You have to kind of pick and choose that too. And I don't know, personally, I suffer from imposter syndrome, right? I always kind of feel like I'm faking it. How did I get here? What's going on? And it's you start to learn more and more. You start to talk to people in your peer set or grow your peer set, and everybody faces the same things, right? They might not admit it. It might not be who they are. Maybe they don't question themselves, but they still have feelings, and that's just normal.
Yeah.
Having an intention, a person with the intention of sitting at that table when the sales leaders are talking, or the sales team comes together and they're talking about a new strategy or a new approach to the market, and you've got this person saying, yeah, but what do my people need to know and be able to do so that would work? And then they're circling back and saying, okay, well, we need to make sure they're educated on these three things. And the sales managers were like, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
So it's somebody that is just intentionally listening to, it's kind of like, you get in these sales meetings and it's just like squirrel, they're topic to topic and bouncing around. And there's somebody with the intention of listening on the behalf of the skill and knowledge gaps of the people who will be asking, or will be asking to deploy this technique.
Well, that's the job of a great facilitator. So when you have that person who's out there to listen and learn and take that feedback and scribble it down on a flip chart or a whiteboard and then take it all in and distill, that's what your frontline sales manager needs, or your frontline operations manager or your location manager, is someone that they can just go to with this, and then have that person be the professional who's in charge of discerning what to do with it.
I like I said, I'm a firm believer in having goals, and in all levels. We've got some 5-year goals, we've got some 3-year goals, we've got some next week goals. But one of the things that for me has been the most fun in this role is being a part of setting some goals and then celebrating the hell out of accomplishing those goals. And I think we talk a lot about having a winning culture, and as a sports metaphor, yeah, I would love a Hail Mary, but we don't need it. Let's get the first down and let's get the next first down. And if we have to settle for a field goal, so be it. We'll get some points on the board. But all of those little things are about creating a winning culture, and so much of it is about celebrating those successes and the little things and taking the first step. So that's what we really try to emphasize.
And I think as we think about working with young individuals just entering the business, don't assume that your clients use your preferred method of communication. And you said something earlier that resonates well with me, is the intentional aspect of networking or developing friendships. You have to be intentional yourself about identifying who you need to be networking with. Then how do you go about creating that relationship? And it's not a one-time instant message to them, hey, let's be friends on LinkedIn, or hey, let's be friends on Instagram or on Snapchat. That may open the door, maybe not. It's pretty easy to reject those if they have no idea who you are. But be persistent and find out the process that you need to incorporate into your style to allow them to go, wait a minute, that individual seems to have a lot of information that I want to learn more about. I should connect with them, and then I could learn more about what's going on in their world.
Yeah.
When I found people that I thought don't fit the mold of what I'm looking for, but I can't let them go. Like, I'm going to redefine a position or an opportunity to bring somebody in. And the people I've done that for have been kind of the biggest value drivers for this company.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, there's a dearth of talent in this industry. And when you find somebody that really fits some part of what you want, it's not a perfect fit, but somebody that can absolutely help you get to where you're trying to go. I think it's really important to be flexible enough in what you ask them to do to get them on board to do that for you.
It's tough to get feedback that sometimes doesn't quite sit well with us, right? That just maybe, do I trust this assessment? Especially when it comes from an assessment, because we always can pick those apart, right?
Right.
But it's super interesting. And we have to sometimes make tough decisions as leaders. So is it better to be more of the ice queen in that case and less approachable versus, let's say, the queen of hearts?
Yeah.
Right. Who's much more fun to be around. I trust that person way more, but man, does that prevent you as a leader from being able to let people down when it comes? Because ultimately somebody has to make tough calls, right? Mm-hmm. That's leadership. Sometimes we have to make decisions we don't like to make. And that's sometimes somebody gets to go, or decision or money gets to get allocated elsewhere, or we get to build up businesses in some places and not in others. That's reality.
Yeah. So when the individual is thinking about presenting an idea to someone, find the individual that you have full trust in and they have trust in you, that that you can sit down and have a confidential conversation if it's a confidential topic, and provide your input or solutions, knowing that they will have your best interests at heart when they move forward with presenting that idea or solution. Because there are a lot of individuals that are not willing to move forward with an idea for fear of, it might put a little black mark by my name because I brought up this idea that wasn't perceived as being a very good idea. If you aren't confident to carry that message, find someone that will do that for you. There are people in your businesses or in your life that can be that person that'll say, I got your back. You got a great idea, or let's talk more about it. I have your back. I'll take it to the people that need to hear this.
Yeah.
I think it's important to gain the trust of people around you. There's some leaders who are just super, super charismatic visionaries, and that's just who they are and how they live. And people kind of come along with them, maybe a more positive version of a Jordan or a Brady. But then I think, I'm just kind of be who I am. So what I do is just acknowledge reality and talk about the difficulties and talk about the vision and the positives and why it's worthwhile to go after everything. So it's kind of a package deal. If you just talk about negatives all the time, you're going to end up having people walk away feeling worse potentially. And so trying to pair up the things that went wrong with the things that are going really well.
Yeah. Well, go make a friend. How hard have you worked? Who have you asked to lunch lately, right? Who have you gone and got a drink with lately, right? I mean, are you really working at that? But that comes back to your point around having someone to bounce the idea off of, right? Just having someone at work who're like, hey, that's one thinking about, what do you think? Shoot some holes in this and or give me some feedback, give me some input. I want to bring this to the CEO, but I want to run it by you first. I think it's a great suggestion, right? To have somebody in the workspace that, that can be that for you. And if you're an employee listening to this, I guess I would implore you to take a look at, are you doing the work to build intentional relationships at work and really, be, if not friends, at least allies with people. I stole this from Tony Robbins years ago. It's something called the 6 basic needs. Okay. There's 6 basic human needs. Don't have time to train on all of them, but one of the 6, is growth. When I talk about need, I'm talking about you need this stuff, you need food and water and shelter.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. These are things that we have to have. Otherwise, if we're not getting them at the place that we work on a regular basis, then we'll go find them somewhere else. So this is a really important one that you're talking about. It's literally one of the needs. So if you're structuring a management program, I would include, what are the growth opportunities, right? And don't go halfway on these.
Right.
Identify what makes you passionate. What triggers your happy thought process. What triggers your negative response, and recognize those triggers. will allow you then to be more successful moving forward, and maybe circumventing events or trigger points that create anxiety or angst with you as an individual, but also know where's that spot that you can go mentally or physically that allows you to have a little bit of peace and time to reflect upon, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And what is the outcome that I expect out of where I'm at right now?
People often think that leaders have it all figured out, right? We elect these people to high positions of leadership serving our country, or they earn their way into a role as the CEO or a vice president of a company. And the assumption is this person has it all figured out. And at the end of the day, right, the leader may be just a few steps ahead of where the people are, the team is, only because they spend maybe more strategic time. But really, like, their job is to lead a collaborative effort of other leaders to get the work done and to do the work through.
Being vulnerable as a leader, I think it's absolutely mandatory if you want true followership. If you want, especially going back, I talked earlier about a coaching culture. If you want people who look at feedback as really helpful and not threatening, it's got to come from a good place, a place of trust. And that's what vulnerability and being vulnerable as a leader allows you to accomplish. And so
this is a super interesting take. I don't know if I've heard anybody bring that up yet, which is looking, you've got those people that are staples of the culture that you want to see, and they may not be the A player that you could maybe recruit in, but they're more important as a B player because they make the culture that you want happen.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So we look at like how somebody is in their natural state. And then the second part of that is, well, how are you feeling in your job right now?
Yeah.
And so if your charts, if your kind of mindset is not matching, then clearly something is happening in professionally that's draining you, and we need to address that.
Yeah, I love that. What if you do get shot down? What if it doesn't get adopted right away? Rather than look at that as rejection, right? I can also flip that around, the exact same scenario, and shift the perspective and say, okay, I've got another opportunity to go do more research, think about it some more, and come back with a better pitch. If you believe in what it is, right? There's a lot of different ways to go about getting it out there. And just because we hear no one time, just because we're getting rejected one area, doesn't mean we'll get rejected in another area. And I'll say this, I think it's an intentional choice. You get to choose as the leader intentionally, how do I decide I'm going to show up based on my personality, based on my experience? That's something you got to pick. You got to pick a horse and ride it.